Marshall's here. Oh my God. I'm not nervous. Obviously. Oh my goodness. There you go. I've lost my drink already. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the Antlered podcast. I'm Elwin, and I'm a fourth generation head witch.
And I am Amanda, the moderator, and I'm so very excited.
Right, we are drinking, I'm drinking unicorn's blood.
What's the one guy in Harry Potter that drinks the unicorn blood?
Voldemort.
Oh, hail.
It's just the name of the beer. It's quite nice.
I am having gin and tonics with the pink gin. I don't know what flavor that is.
Strawberry.
Oh, all right. And
what?
The other half of that was?
Oh, and we're talking to Marshall, also known as the Witch of the Southern Light.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Yay.
Hi, y'all. Thank you for having me. And I'm drinking Chardonnay.
Yes. Cheers.
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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if you heard that. He just like belched.
It wasn't a belch. It was McGullet.
It's good. It's good.
It's fine. We'll cut that out.
Yeah, it's fine.
It was just it was an expression of glee. That's what it was.
So have you always lived in Texas, or?
I have. I was born and raised in a suburb of a major city in Texas. I usually don't say the city, just for obvious reasons, but it was definitely I'm very grateful to be raised where I was raised, because it was in a suburb off of a very metropolitan city. So growing up in Texas in the Bible Belt as being gay, being a witch, these are all very non-Texas red conservative things. And it's interesting you asked that question specifically, because I actually had a very, very tumultuous relationship with my state growing up. I had a lot of anger towards the government, towards a lot of people, towards views and mind points. But one of the things that kind of changed a lot of that was being a witch and animism and finding and connecting with the spirit of place. It completely changed the way I feel about the land I live on, not necessarily about the state and its politics, but more so the ground, the history, everything that exists in my environment that makes up what is my reality. It's not just a state anymore to me, it's a state of being.
That's beautifully put.
Nice.
It's funny too, because Elwin, when he first came to America and he tried to connect with our land, so we're just outside of Chicago, we're like 45 minutes in the northwest suburbs, and you just felt like this is dead here because it's so new
different.
And it was so different.
So different.
Mm-hmm.
I just I can't explain. I felt like I was intruding.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way to put it. I just felt like I was intruding. For me, it was always like I just was enveloped by the land. Like I love it. It's my place where I go and make peace with myself, and especially with like local spirits, things like that. It was here. I couldn't I don't know. It felt so different
For so long for you, yeah.
For quite some time. But it did eventually. Something cracked. I think. I don't know what. I think that was more for me a psychological thing. Because I was so heavily kind of embroiled into the magic of my own country, and like, you know, and stuff like that. And I think for me, I had to just kind of push the barriers of what that meant.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it did eventually, but
Yeah.
it was very strange. It was almost like a mental
No,
block.
it's interesting you mentioned that because do you mind if I ask what like area of are you from England? What part of are you from England or?
In England, yeah. I I've lived in quite a few places, but I was born in Kent, which is in the south, and then I lived for like 10 years in the north, and then I went over to Wales,
Just all over the place.
and then in Norfolk, it was East Anglia, where honestly Norfolk I loved the most, I think. Just because it was ancient and no one ever goes there. They don't. No one ever
It's
wants
not like
to
a
go
tourist location
It's
for
not.
anything.
It's the backwoods of nowhere.
But you know, it's interesting you mentioned that, and I asked that because one of the most influential books on my practice has been Gemma Gary's Traditional Witchcraft, a book of Cornish ways, and a huge portion of me soaking in this material because I read it as well as audiobooked it because I wanted to have two sources on how I was absorbing the information, and what I found most fascinating is how much local structure, land, history went into shaping this craft, this craft of Cornish ways, and her specifical. That's not a word. It is today. Specifical tradition. And
Yeah.
what I really appreciated was I loved how you could see this buildup of literal tradition that created her craft. And it was interesting because for me, listening to all of that while also building up my craft made me recognize, okay, I can't just take her craft and use it because it doesn't connect with the same structures. I have to adapt it to my land. I have to adapt it to my surroundings, my environment. And another one, funny enough, Crooked Path by Keldon was another major influential book for me. And funny, it was
That one?
forwarded by Gemma Gary,
Yeah.
which I loved. And it really broke down a lot of more generalized ways in which you could approach this framework of practice, this structure. And it really made me start thinking about the history of this lake over here, the history of this cemetery. I want to know what the oldest grave in this cemetery by where I live is. I want to know the buildings. I actually walked by my local Walgreens and there was a small little book section with Texas books, and it was like the name of the city and oldest haunted buildings in my city or the long lost lore of this city. And it was fascinating because I've
cool.
never been exposed to my city's historical lore. That's not something that we have a long history of. And to be honest, anything that's going to be that old would exist before America was America.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly honest, I don't know if that's something I feel so structure trying to tap to structure. I don't feel like that's something I feel comfortable tapping into because that's not for me. But so there is this disconnect there that I've been working through and traveling with that's really kind of just opened up my
Right.
my reality here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you looked into your like European ancestry or?
Yes. 75% Northwestern European. So it is mostly uh, a UK mutt, like a lot in, yeah, there's a lot in
Yeah.
Ireland and Scotland and England, a little bit in Wales, a tiny, tiny amount over in like Scandinavia, and then 25% Ashkenazi, which isn't a place, but it is a specific family lineage. That's kind of what I mentioned to you before the show started about my grandfather's Orthodox history.
Mhm.
So
It's really cool.
That is cool. Yeah.
We need to do DNA tests.
I did do the 23andMe,
Yeah.
and funny enough, I actually saw this recently that when it comes to doing a lot of genetic tests, you know, there's a certain percent of accuracy, but one of the specific selective groups that is the most accurate is Ashkenazi because it is a very select group of people who have continued a very specific practice of only remaining within their group of people for such a long period of time. So that has actually kept that genealogy very linear throughout time. So when you have a percentage of that specific one, you can actually trace yourself back much further than a lot of people generally can. So I was really excited to find that out.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't have anything interesting like that.
You did. You made one up a bit.
I traced my ancestry back to like the 1500s to a Scottish lord, and it was 800 times removed. I was like, yes,
Wait,
I made it.
he was a Scottish lord. He said he was a lord when he got to America. That's what. Let's
it
put
was
that
so
there.
long ago. Yeah.
When he got to America, he told people he was a lord, but there was no record.
So it must have been the 1700s then, because the 1500s.
Yeah, it wasn't 1500s. But also, he lived to be like 130. So something's not right there.
I'm royal.
Maybe these were lunar years.
Yeah.
He told people he was a lord, and he lied about his age.
Apparently so. Sounds like me.
Yeah. Oh, mine, mine goes back to the Normandy invasion. That's as far back as we could go.
Yeah.
As a clan known as Rostusparta.
Oh.
Came over in the Norman invasion.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
I mean, were they on the good side or the bad side?
Well, they were the side that won. They came over.
Well, that's good.
They were with the Normans.
They're the side that wrote the history is all that matters, pretty much.
True.
I mean, they weren't technically the good side because then they had the harrowing of the North.
You know,
where they just
don't need to
went
talk
from
about
south to
that,
north of the whole country and just burnt all the farms.
It's fine. So long
We
ago.
can do that. We were still on the boat.
Yeah, you stayed on the boat, babe. So what is the biggest thing you've learned from WitchTok or Instagram, the communities, and what has your experience been like so far?
Man, that's a loaded question.
Baby.
But that's okay. I got some loaded answers.
All right.
So funny enough, I started making my accounts and making little videos on TikTok during quarantine, like 2020 quarantine. And that was a time period where I literally right before we had shut down our salon that I work at, and we had, all gone into hiding for a while. And I downloaded TikTok just because it was like, we were all doing it. We were watching Tiger King and watching TikToks. So I started scrolling and I started seeing all these, and I was just like, oh my goodness, they're putting these online. Like, this is insane. So it was just, a little bit of backstory about me specifically. I got into Wicca and witchcraft when I was like 12, 13 years old, middle school. And then I continued on through high school. And then in my 20s, I kind of dropped all spirituality and then found spirituality back again in my late 20s, early 30s, mostly. So I didn't have a space online, a community online. I wasn't sharing these things. The most Instagram ever saw from me was maybe like a happy winter solstice or like a happy Samhain. That was it. And the ones who knew. So when I downloaded TikTok and started seeing these videos, I was just like, I want to do that.
The people.
I want to make one. And I made like a sleepy time tea one. And it surprised me, the immediate response. Obviously, this is something that people enjoyed. They connected with it, and so I started like looking at more of them, and I ended up making more of them. And TikTok can be a hit or miss situation, but the more I started getting to know other creators and then building my Instagram, the more I started to realize how large and interwoven this community is in the greater spiritual community, because there are so many different aspects of what it means to be a witch or an occultist or a practitioner. There's so many names. There's a Pellar, there's a brujo, there's so many different directions that these can go and come from. And of course, they all sometimes mean different things in their dialects, their original dialects. So these are things that I did not know until I was exposed to many of them on TikTok, on Instagram, with these other creators who were so willing to share their free time and make. I honestly look at some of my TikToks as I use this term loosely, but forms of art, because I love to express myself. I'm so particular about the music. I'm so particular about the way they make people feel when they watch them. I want people to feel like they've had an experience when
Right.
they have it visually taken in something I've put out there, whether that is a tweet with an emotionally charged statement and a picture that gets that across, whether that's an incantation while visually seeing how you may do something. I want this to be something that people feel like is immersive. So the more I started doing it, the more I started seeing how other people responded to it, what I thought was important. And over time, I actually like kind of decreased the amount of TikToks that I made, because eventually I started feeling like I was doing it just to make more. And I wasn't
Mhm.
doing it because I wanted to show what I was actually creating.
Right.
And it's changed over time. And now a lot of times I am very, very specific about doing demonstrations, and I also like mixing a lot of humor in there. I think
Yeah.
that's really fun. Humor gets to people on a educational level because it grabs their attention, but then shares information. And I think TikTok has that on the good side. On the bad side,
There we
where do
go.
I start?
Yeah.
Yeah,
How long do we have?
how long do we have? I'll try to keep it short. In general, there's a lot of voices on social media.
Yeah.
WitchTok has become its entire subcategory of TikTok, and there are witch wars and infighting, and there is weaponized woke warriors, and then there's people trying to get you to listen to their disenfranchised voices. And there's so much crossover and miscommunication that it can create quite a breeding ground for misinformation, and even worse, disinformation. um, you have people who are giving away, you want to make your boyfriend obsessed with you? Don't do this dangerous spell. Here's
Yeah,
how. And,
yeah,
you know, I know it's like, okay, either you're serious about actually sharing domination magic in a 45-second TikTok, or you are just doing a clout grab. More often than not, when it's like that, like, don't do this dangerous spell. Here's how. It's a clout grab. And be perfectly honest, I don't know. I saw one once and it was like, this money spell is very dangerous. Be very careful if you do it. And then it was like, it was a money jar. It was just like a little tiny spell bottle with a bay leaf and some salt and some basil and a green candle. And I was like,
So dangerous.
so dangerous.
Oh my goodness.
So dangerous.
Well, you commented on that one, that the fat loss spell,
that annoyed me.
because
Just
That's so
that is
annoying.
dangerous, because like you
Because
could
it-
get an eating disorder from
But
that.
it's not just that. It plays on
People's insecurities.
not just that, their pain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's capitalization.
yeah, and it was from someone who has so far admitted that they aren't actually a witch, but they just make them.
Yeah.
They just make them.
We'll send you links later.
I'll send you, yeah, I'll
Please.
send you a link. But
Please.
I'll say he looks like the Witcher. I'll just say that.
Mhm. Okay.
He's very kind of smouldering looking.
Ooh, daddy.
Not in that way.
Oh, okay.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I made one that was, I kind of like cut half of that,
Mhm.
like stitched
Stitched
it,
it, yeah.
and then
Made a self-love.
Self-love.
spell. Yeah.
like just to cancel that out, because it was nonsense. It was a lot of the stuff that he uses looks like it's from the last Airbender. Like,
Uh-huh.
it's like, draw this symbol on your palm of your hand
Uh-huh.
and then carry on with your day.
Does it rhyme with itchpock koi?
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yes, that is the one. And that's the problem. That's the problem.
So funny enough, I think people are going to listen to this, and I think they
Hope
should
so.
totally know.
Yeah.
No, of course, obviously, but I think they should totally know. He and a small group of people are part of a media company, and they
Oh,
specifically, because they reached out to me. They
really?
reached out to me on Instagram and asked if I would like to join their media company, and they would promote me, and I would promote them, and I'd be part of it. And that's when I realized it was co-owned by a couple of them, and
Mm,
that is what they do. They literally are just
works, yeah.
it's a social media company. It's not
That's
witchcraft.
I'm
gross.
guessing that woman with the light blue hair is also the one who keeps talking about fairies.
Oh,
No, that was another one, but it was more or less the same.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
I'll another negative topic.
Yeah.
How have you handled
Let's go.
trolling and negativity and etc.?
You know, to be perfectly honest, I went through a long period of time as a child and adolescent dealing with bullies. It messed with my self-image a lot. I was and still sometimes deal with my own eating issues. Like it's one of those things that has affected me throughout my life, but I'm 35 now. I am in a place that is so different than I was a decade ago, and I'm grateful for it because it's taught me one, how little trolls matter. Like they matter so little, very little. And two, that sometimes I can let my naughty side out and just troll them back. I love trolling back trolls, especially when you get to catch them at their own game. Someone will leave a comment on my page, and then I'll make like a sarcastic response video to it. And not only thank you so much, troll, did you drive traffic to my page, but now you're driving more with this video I got to retort with. What a gift! Like, what a gift. So I've been able to really enjoy trolling back the trolls. But there is a level of something in between where people who just want to argue with you or don't like you, but they come at you with debatable information. That's where things get sticky because I actually don't ever want to. I don't ever, I was to say, I don't ever want to come across as, I don't want to be the person that is so full of my own ego that I'm like, I'm not listening to what you have to say. I will totally listen to a dissenting opinion. I learn so much from my followers. They have taught me a lot because there are certain times when someone will bring something up that I'm totally unaware of. And I'll look it up, we have the conversation, and I'm literally like, thank you so much for bringing this to my attention. I'm going to address this right now. Or I'm going to go edit my caption, or I've removed full posts because I was misinformed about what I was saying. And I think as a creator, that's really important for me to do because I know how many people are listening to what I have to say. I don't ever want to be that person that's perpetuating misinformation. So there is a level where I have to recognize that sometimes someone coming at me aggressively is coming at me aggressively because I am wrong. And I'm grateful for that. It didn't have to be so aggressive, but still.
You can be nicer to me.
Right. I'm listening. But to be perfectly honest, I think there are a lot of people who have been not listened to, that when they finally have the opportunity to say something, they feel they have to shout because they've been so unheard. And I recognize that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Can I just say really briefly, like all the
Please.
clapbacks on your Instagram post for Halloween when you guys were the coronavirus vaccines? I was dying laughing. I enjoyed that so immensely. You have no idea. I was just like, this is the best. Like that just needed to be a whole like a webinar series or something.
Well, no, it was so funny because like it wasn't even supposed to be, I don't know, politically motivated. It was just a Halloween costume, and it was a skanky one. It was gay Halloween over in the city, and I wanted to wear something kind of, a little bit salacious, but also be body conscious because there's been a couple thick summers. So I put this outfit together, and I had like at least 250 people unfollow me for that. And I wasn't sure if it was because of the outfit, because I was showing something that wasn't witchy for the first time, because they thought I was promoting vaccines. And I'm just like, I had to wear Johnson and Johnson. Do you think I would be promoting Johnson and Johnson? No, absolutely not. It was
Oh my
just one of those
God.
moments where I'm like, we came up with a last minute Halloween costume the week of. We had a
Mhm.
friend with one of those Cricut machines who ironed on those things on our shirts. It was just, it was silly fun.
It was so cute. And I was just so surprised how serious people took that. Like, guys, come, it's funny. It's cute. God,
Social media is not that serious.
it's not. I thought we
Unless it
only
is.
experienced that on Facebook, but apparently.
I don't know. No.
Um,
Oh, I want to ask that one, and you know which one? Because
which one? I don't know. I don't. I'm not psychic like you are. Okay, go ahead.
That's the one I want.
You can skip ahead if you feel
Yeah,
the
yeah.
need. Okay,
Right.
go on. There's no rules here.
I wanted to
None.
talk to you about Cornish magic,
Mhm.
Cornish and Devonshire magic,
Yeah.
primarily, and the Gemma Gary book, The Black Toad, and how
Yes.
you enjoyed it. Because I also have the Black
Look,
Toad,
look,
and I
I
have
don't know if
the
you can see that. Too far away,
problem.
but
Oh, it's beautiful. I love it. I'm wearing my pendant now.
Oh,
my
yes.
God, where'd you get that?
Troy Books.
Really?
They make them,
Is that
yeah.
legal?
They have it in bronze as well as pewter, and they have several other beautiful pieces. Literally, Troy Books Publishing. It'll take a month to get there, but still.
I think I've seen them.
Yes.
No, because I think they have that one, the Stang and Serpent.
I have that one as well.
Oh, do you? Oh,
Yeah. I almost wore it.
All right. You see, that's
Mhm.
I honestly I love most of Gemma Gary's books that I've read so far.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I really love them.
Mhm.
The Black Toad is fantastic.
I love the Black Toad.
It's
Mhm.
such a good book. And what's the other one? Silent as the Trees.
I have not read Silent as the Trees yet.
I love it because it has these historical accounts of what happens to people when they come across witches.
Ooh.
And it's like a farmer in like the 1700s, and there's they're all like infamous witches with these names that they're given. And like one of them comes and demands food every now and again, and he decides that no, you're not having any food.
Yeah.
And she curses them. And then he goes and sees another, like a Pella, and the Pella tells him what to do. And then they kind of dissect about why they did it, why they would. Oh, I love it. But
You're
it's
just like the tea. You like the historical tea.
I love historical tea.
it's
You're
great.
just like, you don't like my, reality TV shows. You like historical reality.
Mhm.
That's
TV
why I
shows. Is that
watch.
what's
That's
you're
why I
telling me?
watch Sharp. I love it. Sharp, all the Napoleonic stuff and Sean Bean.
Oh
I
my
think it's great.
gosh. Don't watch that, please.
Oh no, but
What was the question there?
what? Just about.
You just would go.
I just want no, because I do really love that book. It's such a good book. But you wanted to ask about that book
Yeah.
because like how I got that book was I
Mhm.
had it sent to my parents.
and
And then
then we flew to England.
And then we flew to England on a holiday, and that's when I got it. So I got a
Yeah.
load of them at
Mhm.
once because I was like the post, because that's a long way from
Yeah. And I was just
Oh
like,
yeah.
you must have an insider communication at Troy Books that we also need to be put in touch with, because it's so expensive
it's very
to ship them over here. And I'm like, you must have some kind of person or something, because damn, they're expensive.
I am very, very lucky in a way. I live alone. I have 2 dogs and I work full time, and then I do this for fun. Like I do,
Oh, okay.
podcasts for fun on top of it. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful, but I'm also very privileged in the fact that I I have a lot of disposable income. So because no offense, I don't have
I
kids.
remember
I'm
that.
not married. I have a mortgage, but I don't have to rent, so I don't have to worry about changing yearly rent. So I kind of have a pretty good idea about what I'm bringing in, and I'm lucky enough to. I like. I love a hardcover book. I'm a whore for a hardcover. I think they're beautiful. I think they're gorgeous. And over time, I didn't do it all at once. I collected these books over time. So I have about 9, I think,
Yeah.
Joy books, and almost all of them are the standard hardcover book. But I love them. I think they're beautiful. I only usually get like 1, maybe 2 at a time. They'll take about a month to arrive. But what's interesting, because I've ordered so many, and I've had I've tagged Gemma multiple times in my posts, so I've been able to have just very minimal correspondence with her, and I've emailed and spoken with Jane Cox as well. So I think I don't think it makes any difference on how I get the books or anything, but maybe that's just me throwing out that I had a conversation with Gemma Gary once that gave me the tingles.
My God.
Yeah.
I'm just Gemma.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
She's so kind too. Like she's just so she's very sweet, because I will, I'll post something about something she's taught me, or I actually sent her a picture once of something I drew that she inspired. This was one of them, actually. There's a picture of like, the devil or the bucca. Well, not the bucca, because that was more of a Texas base, because hers is more of a goat. But where I live, the devil of my land has more of a stag head in my visualization. So that's very Texas. I literally have horns everywhere passed down from my dad. But it was one of those things that it was definitely a fangirl moment, because here I was getting to show my art to someone that inspired, literally the person that inspired it. And it was really cool.
Yeah, that's
so cool. We'll just have to go to England again, babe. That's what we came down to.
Her sigil work, I find amazing. She does some of her sigil work, I love it. It's really lovely to look at.
You do. It's beautiful. Yeah.
I love the Black Toad too. I really appreciated the way, if for people listening, if you haven't read the Black Toad, it is a kind of an opener introduction, and then it gets broken down into 3 parts. The Old Mother Red Cap, Old Mother Green Cap, and Old Mother Black Cap. And there's 3 kind of sections of types of magic. And I love this. It's like a framework of practice where you understand. I'm not saying that, I believe there are 3 mothers and they all represent this, but they're archetypal spirits, they're archetypes. And so there's this really interesting idea of how you could build these types of archetypes into your practice. So say I'm working a healing on a friend, and I want to use the diminishing abracadabra charm that I put over a poppet of them with a little bit of their hair. And then I also use a little bit of maybe some yarrow, some garden sage, and some aloe vera. So just 3 different healing spirit plants. And then I may call upon Old Mother Greencap to come down and invoke her within me while I work this spell. Now, that may not be something that the book explicitly stated is to do, but it's something that within my own practice, I will then create a framework around. It's very similar to how I created a framework around the 4 familiar spirits of the snake, the hare, the toad, and the crow. There's so much more available there from traditional witchcraft and the Book of Cornish Ways that Gemma doesn't really go into. And I don't know if that's because it's more private for her practice, or because maybe that's the extent of what she was willing to share. But I took it and ran with it. I have a whole system that I've been building with these familiars, and it's a really, really interesting way to take what you read and make it yours.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's so crazy because you guys are so similar.
It is.
It's wild.
As I was reading it, I just thought, this is like, there are things here that just make more sense to me.
Yes.
Than a lot of other things that I've read before.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. I just love it so much. And what's the other one? That isn't. I've got another one of hers. Sure.
Devil's Dozen.
We're looking at that.
So I think there's the Silence of the Trees. I've got another one.
You got where's the storybook one?
That is the Sonnet as the Trees.
Oh.
And
I thought you liked that extra one.
they're
Remember?
hardbacks as well, because I am a sucker for a hardback.
I love hardback.
They're
No,
really-
Gemma also had she did
Mhm.
the Devil's Dozen, as well as Wished Waters, which was not published through Troy. That was a different publishing company, which is
Yeah.
interesting, but it was specifically about magical waters,
Oh, right.
wells and springs.
I heard that. I know The Devil's Dozen. I've heard that on audiobook, and
Yeah.
I thought that was amazing.
Right.
I really was.
I've done a few rituals that I've adapted from there.
Yeah.
Just a few. Some of them are not pertinent or part of what I would probably do as a long-term practice, because some of them do involve other people, and I am strictly solitary. I don't know if I work well with others. Every time I've ever tried, it's been non-jivey, if you know what I mean.
Jivey, yeah.
I mean, I did cast a circle once with you, and then you went a bit loopy, didn't you?
Oh, I got so magic high. I was like giggling on the couch for like 2 hours. It was wild. I was like, I am so high right now. This is the best day ever.
I see what I did there.
Yeah.
A little too much mugwort, maybe.
A little too much.
A little too much flying ointment.
Yeah.
Too much there for me. But
No, I've always been solitary in that sense. It's which is also a very strange thing.
Yeah.
I even now on with TikTok,
Mhm.
there are things that I don't share, if you know
Yeah.
what I mean. I do believe that people should be informed, and it's good to let people know, but there are certain things that
Right.
I don't think will ever feel right to just share,
100%.
Even you have a Patreon too, like even with your Patreon members, like you are trying to give information without completely revealing everything, because it is so private. It is so private, you know.
Definitely. It's I always said the thing is that it's not so much as I'm not trying to teach you step by step to patrons. That's not the point.
Yeah.
You have to find your own way. It's like the crooked path is the point being. You don't see the way yet, but you walk the way, and that way is different to mine. I can just be here and help you, like, and give you information on things, but I don't want to tell you this, that you have to do this and this and this, because for me it's never been about that. Sounds too much like a religion to me. And not that there's like many people find a lot of spiritual peace in religion. For me, it's not about that.
Yeah.
Your spirituality is as unique as you are. So therefore you can't just adhere to the rules of someone else because it works for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know I actually recently just spoke up on a couple of posts in a row, actually, funny enough. I said, and I love it. I love this motto, and it's restraint can be one of your greatest superpowers. And I think that works magically as well as in your regular everyday life. There are so many times I have wanted to say something and I have gone, you know what? I'm not going to. For whatever reason it may be, whether it's just, you know what, it might save some drama, it may not be helpful at the time, but when it comes to witchcraft, there is, I'm not sure if you ever follow like the tenets of the witch's pyramid, the to know, to dare, to will, and to be silent. There is as these 4 sides of this concept of this witch's pyramid, and to be silent is so important for multiple reasons. Some of them is because honestly, when this was created, it was during a time when it was literally illegal to practice anything from the occult. But also, there are spirit communications and practices and mystery traditions that are not meant for the public. They can be meant for a selective group of people who are participating in an action or spirituality. They may be for you and some close ones. They may be even just for me to share with a smaller group of people who are more invested, like my patrons.
Yeah.
But they're not for everyone. And I have seen people on TikTok and on social media in general, they spill it all. And it's gotten to be one of those things where I have been like, I can't tell anymore if people are spilling their secrets
Yeah.
or if they're making shit up. There is a period, there is like a sect of people that are literally like, oh yeah, Loki and I went out for coffee. He got a caramel macchiato. I had a raspberry split. Like, I don't even know what this is. And I'm just like, I'm sorry. Is this satire, or did you really go with Loki to Starbucks? I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the things they do,
It's
such
wild.
conviction, such conviction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to assume it's satire, right?
I'd like to assume that. Unfortunately, what I find is that's what's interesting. So, have you ever heard that concept of being like, you do something that's so crazy that it's obvious that it's crazy? The problem is when a bunch of people do something as a rebellion, eventually it's going to get taken seriously.
Yeah.
And so what happens is there is a movement to where a satirical rebellion gets a momentum, especially on social media, where it starts getting taken more and more seriously until someone's like, how dare you question the fact that I am married to Odin? How dare you question my spirituality? Stop gatekeeping me, girl boss. Like it starts to like change into these things that I'm like, wait, I thought you were kidding. Like we were joking. And I don't know. I feel like that is one of the slippery slopes that you can find on social media that I think is not cute. Not cute.
How crazy are you? Question mark.
How dare you use crazy as a word? It's ableist. How dare you? You're canceled.
Rude. Yeah, I know, honestly. I'm gonna go check on that.
No, it's all right now.
You think so?
Yes. We've got an elder daughter for that. She's got her. You heard her tackle the small one.
Sorry, I just heard like a 3-year-old scream, and I'm like,
yeah, but you heard the footsteps, right?
Yeah.
And then you heard the bigger footsteps. Like,
you have a very small house, and it's very small.
It's not that small.
I mean,
it's just there's a lot of us.
That's true. And a lot of animals. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
You guys keep going now. Okay. I'm just gonna cut this bit out. So
sure. As long as you are, can I go get myself a refill?
Yes.
Actually,
yeah.
And I'll have a vape as well.
All right.
Do y'all edit your own?
Yes. Yeah. I don't know the first thing, but Amanda does.
We use Anchor for ours, just the Anchor app, and I edit it on the app there, like literally on my phone. I have a couple friends who use like Adobe and stuff, and I'm like, I have no idea how any of that works.
I think that's what she uses. I don't know. Yes.
I have your phone.
Yes.
My phone. Or would you rather? Thank you. Well. This is going to be a YouTube situation.
Okay. Was it Ryan's World or Coco Melon? But funnily enough, actually, we haven't got them yet. She told me that she'd ordered some books that were children's books about witchcraft and about sort of the different, also pagan celebrations as well, which I thought was really cool because I remember looking to get some when the first one was born, and there's so little out there for kids. One of the ones that I had was I think it was called Sacred Celebrations, and but it's all for like, it's structured so that you're supposed to do it with kids. You can make things, I love that. I like doing it myself, just sitting there making. But,
I'm a crafter. I love like working with my hands, drawing, making something, tying something up.
Yeah, I think that's another reason why I like the folk magic aspect.
Mm-hmm. I see the witch's ladder behind you there.
I know that was one that I actually did for someone, but my hagstone That's like one of my favorite hagstones. I brought it from England.
Really?
And
We don't have hagstones where I live, so I don't.
I tell you what, like next time my mother, well, she does go to the beach now, but I'm going to see if I can get some I think you can buy them online, but I don't think it's the same as buying.
Yeah, I used to buy a lot of stuff online, and a lot lately I try to get more local within like a so many mile radius, mostly Texas. Like especially if it's bones, if they're bones, like I like to stick within Texas.
Yeah,
But um, plants and stones, mostly try to stick with
yeah,
either things I find or I purchase locally. But I have been known to order special things every now and again.
yeah. I mean, especially like sometimes it's difficult and you need to get something done.
I had to show you because I was literally just working. I just saved this the other day. If you can see it, I'm not sure.
Oh yes, yeah,
Yeah, we just did the witch's ladder.
yeah. We were talking
I
about.
was just talking about that. That's one of Gemma Gary's pieces of art.
Yeah. Oh, she draw that herself.
She did.
I didn't know that. You know, I didn't.
Yeah, all the art in the book is her artwork. She was an artist before she was a writer.
Wow.
And when her and Jane Cox made this Troy Bush, the publishing company. Originally, she was an artist, and I believe she either ran or worked at a gallery, and she kind of wrote one book, and they couldn't decide if they were going to shop around for publishers, and they're like, we could just just do it ourselves. And it kind of grew from there, which is pretty amazing. So all the artwork is in there, and you can get it on Redbubble. So Redbubble has Troy Books as a separate category. So you can get like journals and scarves and shirts and artwork and placards for the wall.
I know what I'm doing for your birthday. I have so many ideas now.
Yeah.
I have a drawstring backpack with the black toad on there.
Oh, really?
God, that's cool.
Oh, actually, this is one of the journals.
Oh, wow.
Right.
And I just write in it.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
That's so cool. You need something like that too, because
Yeah.
like we have notepads that are half ripped
I'm
up all over the
terrible. Yeah,
place.
the kids get hold of them as well.
Oh, I got like dragon's blood ink spots all over my notebooks.
I was listening to that. Your first attempt turned into like a big ball of
Yes.
gum.
What, the dragon?
Yeah.
I have the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
The seal was broken on one of the ink bottles that I used, and then I come back to it, and all of a sudden it's so thick. It's like syrup, and I dip the nib in, and it's just like a long string of it.
Oh no!
It took me so long to make that.
I know. Even the dragon's blood ink I have now, it's still it's still thin, so it's actually best to use with a thin paintbrush than an actual nib. I tried putting gum arabic in there, but it just it didn't work in the high alcohol content gum arabic. I mean,
right? Yeah. See, that was I was doing the same thing with the high rubbing alcohol.
I used Everclear.
Oh, right, yeah. And
it didn't work so well.
I made a TikTok on it. I thought, this would make a good TikTok in case people are wondering how to make like inks and things. And someone commented like, it's a bit watery. I was like,
babe.
Yeah, I know.
You have no idea what we went through the first time.
What I said, I completely bullshitted it.
Yeah.
I just went, it's supposed to be watery. I like it watery because then one of the bottles open, it evaporates and it gets thicker. Like,
It's so strong. You don't want it to be any thicker.
Yeah.
We promise.
I'll have a quick break because I didn't have one.
Now I have to cut this out too.
No, I was right. I won't.
Okay. Well, now I already said I have to cut this out. See my
Sorry.
Anyway. What question are we on?
Well, I jumped.
Okay. It doesn't really matter. We don't have days in the mall, to be honest with
We
you.
can go in any
Whatever
order.
we
I'm
do.
just doing this tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you
Oh,
work full time, so I don't want to keep you up.
I'm off on Mondays, so I'm gonna be up anyways, so no worries there.
Oh my gosh. That's so nice.
did you add that?
Mm.
I really would love some advice here.
Maybe. Go ahead.
How do you balance the magical and the mundane? Because apparently I would really love some advice here, she's added.
You would really love some.
But I think that's actually a really good question because a lot of people ask me that when I do things like the Ask Me Anythings on Instagram or in comments. That is a actually very common question. How do you balance
Yeah.
the magic and the mundane? And the thing is a lot of people seem to think that they're separate.
Mhm.
They're really not. They don't have to be. And if you actually want to start kind of, I think especially a lot of newer practitioners, as they step into it, it feels like a whole separate part of their life than the rest of their life. The thing is if if we're going based off of antiquity, which is what a lot of our practices are based on, or loosely based on, if anything, if you want to call it that, um, they are based off of these concepts that existed as regular life. So the Pellar, the local cunning person, the medicine woman, like these were all people that existed just as people. They ate, they shat, they drank, they slept, and I do too. So I know that when I put on certain jewelry every day, I know certain pieces of jewelry are blessed, are charged. They have magic to it. When I stir my coffee, I may have a saying. I put out bird feed every couple of days to
Mhm.
keep my relationship up with the birds in my area, and I have a little charm that I say over it, and I do a little invoking pentagram. It's the birds may come, the birds may go, they're always welcome here. Um,
Aw.
Birds may come, the birds may go, they're always welcome here. This bird feed I do bless for the birds far and near. And then I might have something, a message that I'm giving to them directly. So in my tradition or my craft, the birds, they connect to the familiar spirit of the crow, the air. They're messengers of spirits. They work with the element of air, the sky, the weather, the above and the below. So they're chthonic messengers or heavenly messengers, depending on how you want to work with them. So if you want to send a message to a relative that is no longer with us, if you have a spirit communication, if you just want to say, this is an offering for the spirits of the air, may you be ever present in my life, may our relationship continue,
Mhm.
blessed be, or whatever. Sometimes those things just kind of flow as you say it. I just have a specific rhyme that I put together for it. And these are just like little things that I do every day. I mean, if you want to get really religious about it when it comes to your magic or mundane, you could say a prayer before every meal. I have a prayer I say before bedtime every night, and then I have just little things that I do. But most of it is part of my regular life, my jewelry, keeping up my home, uh, my walk that I have with my dogs every single day in the neighborhood, which keeps me in touch with the land I live on. I'm very aware of the changing seasons, the weather, when the morning glory starts blooming again in my neighborhood. So it becomes part of your regular life. I am rarely up here in my apartment, like casting spells all the time. That only happens when I feel like it's something that I need to do, because every part of my life is witchy, if that makes sense.
I think
Yeah.
that's the misconception too.
Well, see, that's what I exactly told you. And
Why?
then you were like, oh no.
Rude.
You were like, no, you focus. I do have a habit of when there's something that interests me, a book
Mhm.
or something, I just dive and there's tunnel vision. And
We have to buy every single supply that book ever requested,
no,
and
that's
we
not
have to get
true.
every single thing to fulfill everything.
No, I think I'm actually really similar. I remember making Jim McGarry's witch powder from traditional witchcraft, and I ordered madder root and camphor oil, and I'm like, these are not things that grow here. Like, these are not things that grow in the city of Texas. Well, in the city I live in Texas.
We'd like to look it
Um,
up.
And so it's interesting because I've actually decided to revamp what my witch's powder is going to be.
Oh,
But the thing is I had to understand what the
Mhm.
origin was first. I
yes.
couldn't just
Right.
I couldn't just make it up. I guess I could have, but I mean, like, I needed something more to learn from to begin with.
Yeah.
So I've actually had a lot of fun with kind of coming up with
Yeah.
and feeling what my land is telling me
Mm,
goes into my witch's powder.
good.
Yeah.
But that's what I was saying
Yeah.
about. Um, this is something I found fascinating. That some people don't really know is that the Cornish magic
Mhm.
and Appalachian magic, actually, Appalachian magic has the same beginnings. It's the Cornish miners who came to the Appalachian Mountains. But
Mhm,
you'll often find, like for instance, the bottle tree
Mhm.
is just a witch's bowl. The witch bowl was used in fishing primarily
Mhm.
originally, but it's the same. It's the same thing. There are so many things, and they've just simply adapted it because of their surroundings.
mhm.
And I love that. I think that's fascinating. To be
Mhm.
honest, just the because that's what witchcraft is. It's the adaptation. You work with what you have around you. Because you work with the same with like local spirits and place. It's all about that. I think it's brilliant. I really do.
And I think that actually goes back to the conversation we were having earlier about the power of restraint and when to keep silent and wanting to share so only so much. Because to be perfectly honest, and I think I've said this before, I am very much a believer that anyone can practice witchcraft, but not everyone will be adept at being a witch, because there is the critical thinking aspect, the aspect of, are you cunning enough, are you tricky enough, are you observant enough? Because there are many times that um, I will, I put out a video and then a subsequent caption on Instagram about my pine crosses that I make with my
Mhm.
hair and my red
Yeah.
thread. And
Yeah.
that's something that I do once a year. And I can't tell you.
Mhm. You could tell me.
I can't tell you how many people asked me, I don't have pine where I live. I'm allergic to pine. I don't have any pine near me. What can I use? And the thing is like I gave you very specifically that this was a spirit of protection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if you can't take it upon yourself to be like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't have pine, but this is for protection. What other type of protective herbs do I have? What protective trees? What protective ideas? What
Right.
can I do? What can I adapt with where I live? And it was one of those things where it's kind of like, if I have to spoon feed that to you, yes, you can still practice it, but could you do it on your own? Could
Exactly.
you on your own be a witch? Could you own that identity? Could you own what it takes to do that as an individual? And I think that's one of those things that it's a gray area where people will find the cunning path and they will walk that crooked weave, or they'll stand on the inside, on the outside, and they will ask how to walk it all the way there.
Yeah.
So
That is
I,
me. But along
I
the way.
right. Well, you married in. You're good. You're set.
Woohoo!
I think there is that aspect there that exists where we don't share everything, because part of the self-discovery, part of the journey is what makes you better at your craft. And I do not think I would be where I am today if I had someone spoon feeding me all this information constantly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Definitely.
very true.
I agree. That's eloquently put as well. To be honest, I mean, it is.
Well, it's eloquently put, but also you had teachers.
Yes.
So you had a different upbringing.
Well, I had teachers, but I actually went against the grain of what my
That's
teachers
true.
told
They
me.
were very love and light witches.
Well, they weren't
Mhm.
always. Put it that way. But they weren't always. But
Yes.
however, I saw that just from observation
Hmm.
that life is a balance of things.
Yeah.
Magic is a natural thing, and therefore nature has both good and bad. It has the power
Mhm.
of both. It does not distinguish. There is no good or evil to it. It just does. It simply
Hmm.
is. It is the person. And so there were things that I was told because I think a lot of families, especially to do with like witchcraft, set rules where we don't talk about this, we don't do this, we
Yeah.
don't do that. I was like, why not? Like, if
Wait.
you're only focusing
Yeah.
on half of the stuff, you're missing out
Mhm.
on so much stuff you could arm yourself with that you may need to know one day for
Yeah.
whatever reason. So I did, and people were whispering about it in the family and stuff, but I did, and they came to realize that it's not. It's like this idea that it's going to corrupt you in some way, in this strange way, and it wasn't. It was simply curiosity, and I'm so glad that I did, because to be honest,
Right.
it is that kind of ignorance.
Yeah.
You can understand why they do it,
hmm
but at the same time, like I said to them, like, just trust me. You know, just trust me. I just want to know. I just want to know all that I can know, at least. And I'm glad.
And that
I
has
did.
helped people though, because baneful magic helps people as much as people don't want to practice it for whatever reason. Like baneful magic can be
Baneful magic
positive.
doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
The word baneful is kind of a bit of a
Downer.
Oh, how do you define the word painful? Because this is a whole discussion all of its own.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
It really is. I mean, I say baneful. I say baneful for the benefit of others, because some people have come to me and said, like, I would like you to do a baneful thing. And I'm like, well, firstly, you have to tell me, and then I will do divination, but you have to tell me exactly what it is and why.
Mhm.
I may not do it for you. There's a good chance I won't do it for you.
95% of the time,
Yeah,
we won't do any kind
I've
of
told
baneful.
them, like, I'm like, no.
Right.
And so, like, most of the time it's some kind of, it's revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time it's revenge. And to be honest, it's not about revenge even. It's simple things of people who need help when it comes to helping them. So from my perspective, it's helping.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if someone is in trouble, if someone has, say, a partner that is incredibly controlling, will not allow them to, like, and they're fearful of them,
Mm-hmm.
then to bind someone, for instance, like, that's considered painful, but at the same point, you're helping someone else. So
it's so convoluted.
it is very cool.
Yeah.
And no, it absolutely is. And that's interesting, because some people think baneful means to cause harm. And I actually think that baneful has a larger umbrella idea, a concept. I think baneful can mean, to be generalized about it, it's any way in which you are manipulating someone without their consent, and that includes binding, that includes cursing, that includes hexing and jinxing, that also includes healing without asking first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of those things that is very subjective.
Absolutely.
And to be perfectly honest, I guarantee you I have been prayed for without my consent.
Mm-hmm.
And to be perfectly honest, I think that there is, like I said, there is a crooked path that we walk as witches. And that crooked path is only one that we can make for ourselves. So if that means doing only certain types and making your own ethical code, that's what we do. And no one else can make that for us.
Absolutely.
No, definitely. Yeah. I think that, funnily enough, that is something that some people have, like, especially when it comes to forms of healing as well. They say, I want to get something for, say, my mother or something. I will say, we've said before, actually, you say that it's like, well, I'd rather the person knows.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's simply like, if they get the okay on it, because it does feel a bit wrong otherwise. It is that kind of, but then that comes into that thing when people say, like, a lot of people have said to me, like, the thing about magic, you know, they say the rule of three, you know, stuff like that. And yeah, I know. And and then sort of like there's karmic law and all this. And I'm like, but you're influencing all your life. You're influencing other people. The moment you make an action or think about something, it influences the life of another. even when you don't know it.
Mhm.
Magic is the same, so how can you distinguish one and the other? One is classed as evil, because
Right.
I think it's kind of laughable, to be honest.
Well, magic is like water. It can quench your thirst or it can drown you.
Yeah.
How it's directed down the path of forcefulness or the lightest trickle is up to the practitioner. And that's one of those things that I think a lot of people don't understand. When they say things like, I only do good magic, I only work with the light side. I'm like, there's no side here.
Yeah.
It's all the same river and it's all flowing in one way. The thing is how are you going to work with it?
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
New witches, please take note of what Marshall just said. Just write it like 10 times. Just memorize it. Like, definitely. I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It gets a bit. Sometimes people come to me and say, I want a spell. But what's the cost? I said, well, the cost is on the website. It's very clear.
Very clear.
This is what you pay me.
You're not making a deal with the devil.
Prick your finger and sign my book in blood.
Yeah, exactly. Lick my butthole.
She recently found out that according to Christian villagers, that's how witches made pacts with the devil.
I just watched Sabrina. Anyway.
And now we just do that on Grindr.
Yay! Yeah, so you can tell I'm a pleb.
Sometimes you'll come out with something. So you're going to need this. I'm like,
how did you fucking know that?
She listens to me.
Only once in a very blue moon.
Because I'm a terrible waffler.
You waffle on forever.
I will. That's the worst thing about TikTok, because I'll have to remake my TikTok 5 times because I'll just waffle.
God, it annoys the ever living.
And it's interesting. So since making a Patreon, a lot of my TikToks I will put on Patreon in advance. Sometimes it's just a day, sometimes it's several days, but I can't tell you how much I want to post it right now. I just want to post it. I've been working on it for the past hour. I got the captions right. I did the song just right. It looked really good. I had the opening and the closing, and I want to post it, but no, I can't.
Yeah. It is.
It's so frustrating being married to an earth sign and more earth dominant. And I'm a fire sign, and I'm just like, let's go, let's do this. And you're like, we need to research every minute detail of this.
Go and make a TikTok.
I'm like, go make a TikTok. It's like 30 seconds. It takes no time.
Like, no, but to make a good TikTok, I have to make a good TikTok.
It's like,
oh yeah, at least 45 minutes to an hour to make a good one.
Y'all.
Unless it's short and funny. If it's like a lip sync funny one, then it's really easy.
It really is. I've got loads of those in the draft.
Yeah, those are easy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, at least you're Marshall backing you up now. Because I'm like, it'll take 10 minutes. Just go in your office and do it real quick. And you're like, babes. No. Fair enough. I feel like we've been on here a while. I don't know what time we're at because I'm gonna have to edit it, but where are we? You pick one question, I'll pick one question. How about that? Unless Marshall wants to pick a question.
You better pick a good one.
Oh, now it's the pressure.
So Marshall, some background about us. We met online on OkCupid.
OkCupid?
On OkCupid in 2016. Wow.
I love that.
And I DM'd him and he did not answer me. It was fucking rude. And for a month, he did not answer me. And then he messaged me back and he's like, hey. And I wrote this very long, considerate message. It's very detailed because I scoured that profile.
That's how long. It mentioned all aspects of myself.
Absolutely. Because I'm thorough.
She did her research.
I did my research. And you're just like, hey. And I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah. And here we are. 5 years later.
Yeah. So.
Pick a question.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do what branch of magic are you most drawn to practicing at the moment? Working, for instance, working with spirits, spell work, or high magic, low magic, that sort of thing.
I would definitely say it probably falls more into low magic. I tried my hand at a lot of ceremonial stuff, and I'm to be perfectly honest, a lot of traditional craft is still ceremonial. I think when I say ceremonial, I mean more of the full-on Solomonic invocations, Golden Dawn material. It's very, very. You have to have a whole space and walking a circle. I don't do any of that shit. Not that that's shit. I just don't do any of that. I have an altar
Mhm.
that faces kind of right between south. It's like southeast. So I like to focus on my local land spirit. I focus on the devil of my land and the witch queen or goddess or witch mother. I actually have coined my own name for her. I call her Lady of Other because um, I feel like, to me, this is just my personal practice. She is something that is less concrete, if that makes sense. I don't necessarily think of the idea of the witch king and queen as the lady and lord in a similar two sides of one coin fashion. They are part of a larger whole. And I see the devil of my land or the man in black as the physical gatekeeper and representation of the spirit of place. And the lady of other resides on the other side of the hedge. So to work with both of them, that crossing must be made. And in that process, I've kind of built up a system where I do a prayer to the man in black, I do a prayer to the lady of other, I invoke the four familiars in my space, and I have created a traveling to Sabbath, if you will, at my altar. That's the closest way I can describe it without giving away too many secrets.
Oh,
And
I know the Queen of Elfheim.
yes, and it's interesting because a lot of time I've been looking up a lot of the history of the Queen of Elfheim, and it's interesting the way that deities and full-on goddesses who Dianic goddesses and cults of Diana back in the 4th and 5th century over time were hunted and demeaned and not just, I'm not going to say that it was this big burning time, so I'm not going to fall into that
Yeah.
thing, but it's more so that they were converted and hunted and forcefully converted in a lot of places, slowly over time, to the point where this goddess became a little bit more of a local spirit, and there is this Queen of Elfame of spirit. And while I don't necessarily connect directly with the Fae, because the Fae is a very it's a very British Isle located
Mhm.
mythology, and I respect that completely. In fact, there's a lot of like little people myth all over the world,
Oh,
but because that's not my necessary connection, I connect with this idea of this lady of other who she was what I call the hedge keeper. She's the queen of heaven and hell, the above and below. While she works the access mundi tree up and down, the physical god or witch king works more of the horizontal, the landscape.
Yes.
And then there's the directions that go in between, which is where the four familiars lie. And that's kind of the picture that I create. And so I guess it's a little bit more like a spirit work that is involved with a local spirit of place as well as the spirit of the other side, which is much larger and very, very less human. So I don't have a very clear depiction of what she would look like
mm,
because for me, the devil of my land is very specific. Um,
Mhm.
for one, I live in the neighborhood, so he's sexy, gorgeous, but he also carries the head of a stag, and it's one of those things where he is somewhere between man and animal. He's somewhere between here and there, but also in the physical and the non-physical. So once you have called that into place, you cross over and then you are connected with her. And so that's the kind of like system that I have built within my craft that I don't necessarily think that it's high or low magic, but in that process, connecting to these spirits as an animist, I then bring that back into my work, into this charm bag, into this sigil, into this cauldron that I'm stirring with my wand while invoking a specific spirit for healing, or revenge, or for money, or for whatever my desire is in that working.
yeah, that's brilliant. That's fantastic.
You're like so impressed right now. It's
I
very
am.
cute.
Because there's so much I relate to here.
Yeah, no, I
Like,
know. I
oh,
know.
yeah.
It's a really amazing thing when you can hear someone speak things that you're like, I know.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, because that doesn't happen very often for a lot of us in this community.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to put you in contact. We had a drawing done of Bune.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be a really good contact for you if you had kind of an idea of what you think.
No, that's the point. There is
It's the
no.
essence. Yeah.
See, I always, it's very strange because I see exactly the same, like the Queen of Eltham,
Mhm.
I see as like Ceridwen, almost more of a crone
Yeah.
Mhm.
in a way, but also for some reason, every time I try and hold this image, it's
Mhm.
blurry. But what I notice is her skin is blue.
Blue,
Yeah. Every time I try and
like Avatar?
no, not like an avatar, but it's just ever so slightly light blue,
Right.
like she's cold, but she's not cold. I can't explain
Mm.
it.
Interesting.
I tried to draw her once, and I'm not gonna pretend to like this is how I see her. I was just trying to kind of play around, and there was something very inhuman about the way that I saw her. There was no eyes, there was no face, and I was just drawing it for affect because I was listening to something that was interesting. But I wanted to make sure that there was nothing physically human about the way that she was presented.
Yeah.
The stars and the moon and the hair going everywhere kind of represents the fact that she is all encompassing, but she's not all encompassing in the physical. She is of the moon and stars. She's of the other side, not of the universe, but of the in-between spaces, if that makes sense. That's the only way I can describe it. And I've come up with a sigil that helps me work with them.
Oh
There we
my-
go. So you have the stag head, or the more the devil of the land here, and then the 6 point star here represents the light between the horns. So that for me represents her. So she is the light that shines between the gateway, which is the horns. And then there's the snake, the hare, the toad, and the crow. And those are the 4 sigils that represent the 4 directions, because it literally, this is of course backwards, but for me, this is where east and south lie. And so literally, I don't know where these symbols came from. They're so simple to me, but they came to me in a way that was just, this is what they are. I know this is what they are. And I didn't have any other way to describe it, or I don't have some really amazing story that's like, oh, there was a burst of flame and these symbols came to me in a vision. I just knew that's what they were. And so I've built a type of symbolic system that represents something larger, if that makes sense.
That's brilliant. Yeah. That's the thing. As long as you know what it is, as long as you know, that's what we were saying about the when it comes to teaching people.
Mhm,
So it's like,
mhm.
if it works for you and it means exactly that to you, that's all that matters, because it is your perception. It is
Absolutely.
completely down to you.
Mhm.
Your perception
Mhm.
is yours. You will never experience the perception of another in any other way, like you do yours. And that's the idea of like being a god, in a sense. It's the idea of like, you are a god, you have the power of a god.
That's even kind of like what we've talked about with deities before.
Yeah.
And how different people interpret deities, but how they come through and why certain deities might come through is Elwyn was talking about how it was a genetic predisposition. It's in your DNA that you receive messages from this deity because you have a connection to them through your DNA.
It's
genetic
not,
makeup.
it's not just genetic makeup.
Mhm.
I'll add that, because you can't say, like, for instance,
It's science plus spiritual.
on TikTok, the one thing that I see on TikTok a lot is like people of color, especially, having like huge arguments with people, responding to people who said, you can't be a Norse pagan. And like, I think it's just like, that's ridiculous. Like, why can't you be a Norse pagan?
Yeah, if you're a person of color.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. So it's not about that,
right?
But the point is that what I meant is that throughout history there are certain similarities to certain deities that are always held. They're always a symbol of that same thing, but they have these similarities about them. For instance, the horned one.
Mhm.
There's so many different versions, but it's down to you. It's like it's down to you as a person, as how you perceive that. I'm also the same. I see the horned one as having antlers. I don't know if that's because of the whole thing with like perhaps Kurnonos as well, but it fits, always has fit more, like the antlers, especially the antlers with the candle in between. It's always just fits for me. So I think there is this kind of predisposition in a way of not just genetic, but also where you were raised, where you grow. The things
it's almost like an activation.
Yeah, it's almost like an activation almost. Was that so many people who come to like some form of spiritual path or witchcraft as well, and it's already there, if you know what I mean. It's already there, that all the images of these things, they already have it there. And it's just bringing them to the surface. That's the thing that
I think that's a really cool concept. Like when you talked about that, I really resonated with that.
I know. You kind of made it sound a little bit racist though when you said genetic. Yeah, I was like, whoa.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because it's like someone from someplace can't do this.
No, just that it's part of your biological makeup that the gods or deities have put inside you. Yeah. That you have a lineage there. And so it is activated once you've realized your true potential. Does that make more sense? Does that sound less racist or no?
No, it does. And I think I know what you meant, because there is that discussion that unfortunately falls within certain communities about blood quantum, and you can only do this if you have this much of your biology. I knew very clearly that's not what you were describing. There is this level of, in my opinion, what I like to think about it is there is this level of collective knowledge that exists outside of necessary material. There's this idea. I don't know if this falls in the realm of reincarnation or if this falls in the realm of a recognition of like calling to like, of spirit calling to spirit. And I think there is something within people who have it within them to follow this path, that it calls to them. And some will be interested and it will not be a lifelong calling, and some will be called to it and it will be their whole life. So it's always somewhere in between that. And it could definitely be something that is literally within their genetic makeup, or it could be something in their spiritual genetic makeup. I know without a shadow of my doubt, like I don't know what past lives or future lives are looking like. I don't know whether they're linear. I don't know necessarily exactly what I think happens outside of this individual existence of life in this flesh suit. What I do know is there are certain things that I have experienced before that have given me enough of an experience of that to have enough within me in this lifetime to find me where I am now, if that makes sense. I know that I have been with specific people in this lifetime before. I know that I have experienced something within this. I don't know if this is direct tradition, but I've experienced something that is very spiritual, that is outside of this lifetime, that I knew obviously at a very young age in this lifetime I was drawn back to. I absolutely think that exists.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I agree. That's basically what I was saying.
Yeah, you summarized it much better than both of us.
You do.
You put it much better. Thank you.
I'm like when I try to explain to me, I'm like a three-legged dog walking on ice.
Oh boy.
Come on.
We got to get better at making podcasts. Let's put that on the resolution list.
I'll try.
Okay, cool.
Hey, any podcast can be good with some attention to detail and editing. I learned that the hard way.
Honestly, I think I'm just lazy.
No, I'm a pretty lazy pod. I literally edit on my phone on the Anchor app. So I think you're ahead of me.
Oh my goodness, that's so nice. Thank you so much. I almost said bless you, which was weird. I'm gonna, I'm gonna
I'll
put
take
that
it. I'll
on.
take a blessing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna ask you 1.5 questions because I feel
Sure.
one's like a really short one. Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because like the green ones were Ellen, so I wanted to make sure it was complete. What surface is your altar that you draw your sigils? Because I'm just really curious.
No, sure. No, that's a great question. So I bought just a simple black vanity desk, and then I painted it with chalkboard paint, like 3 coats. And I let it dry for about like 48 hours just to totally be sure. But it's just simple chalkboard paint I got from a craft store.
Right.
That's really smart.
That's,
We use slate. We got slate
Yeah.
tile.
I got like a rectangular slate tile and stuck some pads on the bottom of it. But it doesn't do well for chalk. But it does do well for chalk pen.
And mine did not do well chalk pen, but does well with chalk. And I used to have they're like little chalkboards that I literally had like color chalk pens that I would draw on, but they were just so tiny. And I did an interview or we did a podcast crossover with Invoking Witchcraft, and J. Allen Cross, who wrote American Brujeria, he told me that he painted his entire surface with chalkboard paint. And I was like, F yeah. Wait, can we swear?
Yeah, please, God.
Like, fuck yeah, oh my God, that's gorgeous. I love it. And so the next day I went out and I bought some and I painted mine, and I've never looked back. It's amazing.
We should do that to your desk.
I've never even thought of that.
I figured that's what you did, but I wanted to be sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's great.
That's a smart idea.
Because I use chalk paint in like for small trinket boxes. I thought they're quite useful just to draw sigils on and things like that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I never thought of actually doing that for the surface.
That's really smart. Okay,
because honestly, that makes so much more sense. Because when it comes to the chalk pen, you have to be very deliberate.
Yeah,
but if you have a lump of chalk, you can. Sounds stupid, but you can put passion into it. Like when you're drawing a circle, when you're writing, you can really kind of just do it with a bit of. With the other one, you have to kind of be like
just ever so gentle.
You're waiting for the liquid to come out.
And there's this thing I do that I never thought about before until recently, the last time I did it. But when I finished drawing this whole symbol in the center, when you draw with chalk, a lot of times there's like little debris, dust that gets everywhere. I just went down and I blew it. And as the dust went away, I was also recognizing the fact that, even historically, I know in my practice, a witch's breath has a lot of power.
Yeah.
So like when I am breathing to life a sigil, a lot of times I give it what I call 3 breaths of life. When I'm working with a charm bag that I'm invoking or starting off or setting off, I give it 3 best breaths of life and then tie it tight. So that's something you can also do with your altar to kind of give it life, is give it breath.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so many things we didn't ask.
I know.
We just waffle on and on. We are such wafflers. Oh boy. Okay. Well, I think we should say, how has your practice evolved and what brought you into witchcraft initially? I feel like that's the best question.
No, it's a great one. I love that one. My practice has evolved a lot, and I've talked a little bit about it on my podcast, but like I've never really gone through a full-on what happened. When I was 12, I discovered Raymond Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft, the Big Blue Book. Everyone knows Raymond Buckland's Big Blue Book. He was very clever in the way in which he spread his knowledge. He went over to England, got initiated, literally just to get initiated. Then he came back here and started his own tradition, the Saxon tradition, from what I understand. I could be wrong on the lineage of that or the time it took to do so. But when he came over here and he wrote this, I know one of the big ones that kind of put him on the map that everyone knew was Raymond Buckland's Big Blue Book. And it was my first one. And let me tell you, book was not appropriate for a 12-year-old right off of the bat, because it was a lot of information that made me initially feel like I can't tell my parents about this. And then eventually, I found Silver Ravenwolf's Teen Witch, which, then she had her like Teen Witch series. There was literally like a fiction series. I read all of them. I read every single book she put out at that time, because at the time it was very, very influential for me.
Yeah.
And looking back on it, there are some things now that I would say, like, from an older standpoint, I disagree with, but at the time, it was an extremely influential. They're both very influential authors. Silver Ravenwolf was one of the most influential women of that time as an author within the witchcraft community, and I think she, along with a very select group of people during the 90s, kept alive and pushed something that eventually became what it is today. And I personally don't think, if it were for a lot of these 90s authors who a lot of today's generation want to seem to cancel for one reason or other, I don't think that it would be what it is today if it weren't for them. So I'm grateful for Wicca. I'm grateful for the way it has evolved and grown and shifted, and how the information is being shared.
Yeah.
I want to say, like I said earlier, in my 20s, I completely dropped spirituality altogether. I was I don't want to say self-absorbed, but so much, I was in a very different place in my life. And then in my late 20s, early 30s, I found spirituality again. And funny enough, I found that in the New Age community. Yeah, I got very deep into law of attraction, manifestation, all the trigger buzzwords,
Yeah.
that eventually kind of left me feeling like, okay, I am a rational person. I can recognize where this can be helpful, and I'm starting to recognize where this is becoming harmful. There's a lot of victim blaming if you take the law of attraction too far. There is a lot of spiritual bypassing when you start making yourself believe that you are at fault for everything gone wrong in your life. And I kind of stepped away from that long enough to find myself still feeling spirituality, but wanting to get back into structure systems that made me feel, well, honestly, it felt like home. And that was witchcraft again. And so I kind of started getting back into it. And then, the entire pandemic happened eventually. And then I found like the social media. And over time, that is when, I wouldn't say when I found social media and started creating it, you can actually see quite a progression from my very first one to where I am now, because there was a shift from, I am not Wiccan, I'm an eclectic witch. I'm just, I do what feels natural to me, and I have no religion, to, I have a very specific spiritual framework that I work with now. And I feel very comfortable saying that I work within traditional witchcraft and folkloric traditional witchcraft specifically. That's something that I don't think I felt comfortable saying just a few years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah, I understand.
The rediscovery of recognizing that, yes, there is a devil in the craft was a monumental movement and shift for me, because, and I think that's what I was referring to when I was talking about a lot of the 90s writers. Still to this day, I hear people say there is no devil in the craft. That's a Christian concept. And while I appreciate what they're saying and understand where it comes from, it needs to be understood that the reason we have what we do in the community today is because of pioneers in the 80s and 90s who saw the satanic panic. They saw the writing on the wall, and they realized, if we're going to associate with this specific title, we have to be so careful with how we are presenting ourselves to the public.
Yeah.
Right.
And they knew that if we're going to survive with these traditions that obviously had to work so hard just to survive to that point, we're going to have to make some concessions. And I think that's something a discerning mind in the 2020s can recognize.
That's so cool.
Yes. Oh, I agree though. The discovery of the devil in witchcraft is such a liberating thing. It's forced, like it's it's like that thing that I'm sure this is how, because it happens to almost every witch. Someone says, "Oh, they've got a shop and they do witch stuff." You're like, oh. and you go, and it's like there's a few tarot cards and some candles, and that's about it. Some crystals, and something like. So there's a new age shop. It's not the same. Like I get excited when I find like bird feet. Things that I can use to make charms or things like that.
Rowan berries.
Yeah, precisely.
Right.
That's what I want. And it's the same when it comes to the devil in the craft. It's I do a lot of things now where I say call it in the old one's name. It's just, it feels better, to be honest.
Yeah, right.
Because I've never really worked with deities apart from what I used to call Kurnonos. But even that was just a very kind of primal, like you said, like this linear sort of thing of the land. It was not, and it just fits better now because of that, so that's what I do. And it's really provoked my thought on how I look at things as well, because of how other people look at things.
It's interesting that you can develop your craft based on other people, how they practice their craft, not necessarily copying, but like you gain more knowledge on how you want to practice your craft. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
like
it's very cool.
The traditional paths are fascinating. They are fascinating. If you love like a bit of research and kind of getting in touch with like historic things, the way that people, it's fantastic. But then you come away from it thinking this is great, but then you find yourself tweaking it to suit you now, and that's what I love. I think that's good. Like when I went to the dollar store and I found those giant ornate wrought iron keys, I was like, that's fantastic. Exactly what I'm going to do with these. And you're like, why have you got some keys?
Well, I got these big ass keys. What are you doing? Yeah. Oh boy.
It's one of those things that I wouldn't say it's not popular, but it's not as common. Traditional.
You mean like not trendy?
Yeah, it's a shame. I think, because a lot of people, once they're aware of it, they're like, wow, this is actually like it's what you consider to be witchcraft when you're younger, if you know what I mean.
No, I do. There's a presence of otherness in the craft that I do now that I don't think was present in some of the structures that I was using before. And one of the things that I think was really important for my education was understanding that this devil we're speaking of, we're not talking about the Christian Satan. We're talking about a spirit of a place. We're talking about a folkloric archetype. There is a larger, I don't even like to use the word deity. In fact, there's a book that I love, Besom, Stang, and Sword, that talks about their practice, and they very clearly state our practice is secular. When we talk about the witch king and witch queen, when we talk about these spirits, we're talking about very large, grand archetypes. They are not something that sits in a personal individual name that only exists in one tongue. They are very, very immense spirits that we're working with, and we are harnessing them through the land that we work on. So when we talk about the man in black, when we talk about the devil, I am not speaking of Lucifer, the fallen angel, which actually is a whole nother story, because that isn't even in the Bible either. But but we're not talking about this Christian Satan. We are talking about an old spirit, an initiator of the land, a a liminal space that exists
Mhm.
for something that only so few will be able to and want to touch, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That's you got me that thing, didn't you?
What?
Well, for a long time I had a figure of the horned one.
Yeah.
I think it was. It's gone out. It's discontinued now. It's a Nemesis now.
Yeah, like a bronze
resin
cast
thing.
statue. Yeah.
And it was like he's holding a stuff, but it was very druidy, if you know what I mean. He's like he's holding a mistletoe. He's clothed. But I had it for a long time, and then you got me this because I remarked on it once, and it was I can't remember who made it, but it's called the Witch Lord, and it holds many aspects. So he holds.
Does it have the candle and the staff?
I think instead of a candle, what it holds is he has like a stang, but in the center of the stang is a flint napped. That's it. That's it. That's the one. Yeah, and I loved it. I loved because it just encompassed everything, even the hand gesture. You know, I
don't know if you can see this, but there you go.
Yes, that is the design from Besom, Stang, and Sword that the author who wrote that book made that mold, and also the Witch Queen. So the Witch Queen is just as similar, horrific and beautiful at the same time.
Oh wow!
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's beautiful.
Oh, you know what I want for my birthday?
I think it's like from sacredsource.com or something like that.
Sacred Source, yeah. It's so cool.
Yeah, I love that. That's just as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's perfect.
It.
Everything, all the detail, even the skull at the bottom, just it holds everything. There's a bit of everything in there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that was great.
You're real chuffed.
I'm well chuffed.
I'm well chuffed. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything you want to promote, Marshall?
Sure. Absolutely. I'm happy to promote me. I'm just kidding. If you would like to follow me, if you're not following me already, please find me on TikTok and Instagram as Witch of Southern Light. I'm also on Twitter as Marshall WSL. I do have a Patreon and a podcast called Southern Bramble, a podcast of crooked ways with my co-host Austin. We also do video footage unedited completely from our podcast for our Patreon as well. So you can find that all in the link tree in the bio of pretty much any one of my pages. So I'd love to have people listen to me as well, because I can't wait to promote this. This is such a great conversation. So this is going to make some good sound bites for future TikToks and Instagrams.
Love it. Well, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook as The Antlered Crown, or on YouTube as Elwyn the Witch.
We're on Facebook.
Babe, yeah.
I think we will.
Well, I manage it, so don't worry.
I offer a variety of readings, bone tarot, medium connection, and deity confirmation, as well as spiritual consultations, which I've done live and scheduled via Zoom. I'm also offering spell work and custom merchandise, all of which you can find on my website, theantleredcrown.com.
You can also join our community on Patreon and get access to our Discord server, group meetings, and one-on-ones with Elwyn, tutorials, discounts, goodies, depending on the tier level you choose.
Speaking of which, I don't know. You just came
I literally write it out, and you just read it.
Yeah, but you came in so violent with the end there. I was a bit shocked. I was like,
this
why?
is staying in. Okay, go.
It was quite violent.
It was very violent.
It was violent, bloody.
That's what it. Speaking of which, here is our Antlered Crown patron shout out.
Should I sing it? I usually sing it.
Oh.
Alexis, Amanda, Megan, Lord, Tara, and John the Medic. Go ahead.
Next time, we'll be talking about the defensive magic and how best to protect yourself and your home.
And remember,
tip your witch bitch.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bless. We did it. Hallelujah.
Oh, there we go.
I'm so sorry. We
And
do
we went
waffle
on for a
on.
bit, didn't we? I'm so
No, that was
Sat
great.
here for so long. I'm so sorry.